the Defund Me podcast.
Hello and welcome to the DFUD podcast. Today, we are excited to have Ambuj Kumar, who is the CEO and co-founder of Simbian. Prior to Simbian, Ambuj's career has taken a very interesting set of turns. Starting at Nvidia, he was instrumental in the early stages of the GPU production there, which is now obviously the basis of a large amount of progress that's being made in the AI world. But subsequent to that, in the cybersecurity space, Ambuj did something that many people only dream of, which is started a company in confidential computing. This is a topic that's very difficult to sort of grasp, but Ambuj has cracked that puzzle at Fortanix, and he was a founder and CEO there as well. I think maybe, Ambuj, it'll be great to hear from you about what inspired your journey and sort of the starting point of Symbian in that regard.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me here, Ashish and Nancy. Really excited to talk to both of you. Yeah, my journey has always been looking at 2, 3 steps ahead and doing the best I can to serve the moment. I'm not one of those people who plan out things 10, 20 years in advance. Rather, I try to do the best during the day I can, and things have worked out for me. So I did my bachelor's from India, IIT Kanpur, top of my class there. And in 2002, a really bad time to graduate, but Nvidia was kind enough to offer me job. So I took that job. There was nothing more there. I had two choices. Either I could have come here to States for my master's, and I had some offers, or I could make some salary in dollars. So that was all there was to get me here. So I joined Nvidia in 2002. They also were very generous in allowing you to study full part-time if you could get admitted to Stanford, which is what I did. So I did my master's from there while I was working at Nvidia. I spent about 8 years there, got my green card, all that. And then Nvidia was, certainly looking back, had all the right traits to be a multi-trillion-dollar company. Very intellectually honest, very driven, passionate set of people. And so CEO Jensen was very approachable. You could really see him work on a problem, and your mind will go one way, his mind will go another way, and you could see all that happening in real time. So that gave me a startup itch, and I worked for cryptography researching, another company by all the brainiac people, Paul Kocher, etc., who had created SSL. HTTPS was because of him. I became chief architect of that company. Unfunded company, 30 employees, got sold for $340-350 million. So great outcome for everybody. And then I said, okay, let me do something on my own. So created Fortanix. And the premise of Fortanix was that we will encrypt your data everywhere, at rest, in motion, and for the first time in use. So that's what ended up becoming confidential computing. Raised $135 million there, hundreds of customers. After 7 years there, started Simbian. And Simbian takes a very different approach to security. I realized that encryption, etc., that is kind of very powerful tool, but available to very sophisticated companies only, because most companies, they don't have a definite list of their employees. They don't have MFA turned on. They don't know what software is allowed or not. So it's very chaotic. So encryption, before you could talk about encryption, first you needed to know where your data is. You need to know what servers you are using, what applications you have sanctions and all that. So I realized that operations was the main bottleneck. And so Symbian is focused on using AI to automate security operations. So that's what got me here.
So actually on that note, Ambuj, right, speaking about security operations, I mean, you've worked, as you've just told us, in various different parts of security, from data to confidential computing to even, for example, low-level security as well. So coming on to the topic of AI SOCs, right, AI-driven security operation centers, can you maybe tell us how it's different from traditional SOCs? Like, how do we think about it?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, Security Operations Center, SOC, that is about 50% of security budget. So like, $200 billion roughly we spend every year on security, give or take 100 billion goes on SOC. And out of that, one third goes on your software. So your SIM, maybe your EDR, etc. But two-third is just on people. So $66 billion being spent every year. And what really boggled my mind as a newcomer to SOC was that this whole security operations had absolutely no engineering, no science, very ad hoc, even at large companies. So, for example, it's all people did was they had like old traditional style of multi-tier support agents. So you have L1 people who are just fresh out of college, they work, you pay them starting salary, they work for a couple of years and then move out, and then you have L2 and L3. So nobody even thought about, so if you ask a company that, hey, what causes most of your alerts coming to your SOC? Or like what kind of applications are causing problem, they will not have answers to those things. They are very numbers driven, and those numbers are very superficial. So if you ask them like what is your mean time to detect or respond, they will have answers. But then if you start to think out of their like mttr, most of the time they are stuck chasing wrong problems. So they didn't really have engineering instrumentation or sophistications to do those things. And part of the reason was that this whole security operations is managed by somebody else. So even large companies with billions of dollars in security, they outsource their operations to other companies like MSSPs or MDRs. And so the quality is very mixed with traditional SOC. And it just very people's heavy manual business. And like forget AI. If you are spending $66 billion a year on an industry, in an industry, you will think that you will try to know what events lead to more work, what events lead to less work, what's best way of squelching things, and those things are completely missing. So AI SOC gives us time to like rewrite all of this with new technology.
And so, thinking about tackling existing challenges with new technology, can you maybe walk us through some traditional security challenges that you think AI is best poised to solve?
Yes. So one very common thing that happens in traditional SOC is just alert triage. So what it means is that you have, let's say, Splunk or CrowdStrike, and you are getting alerts that say that something bad has happened. And those things are fired based on your like setting. And if you set it like too much, then they don't fire at all, and so you miss real threats. And if you are a little bit lax, then they create a flood of alerts, false positives. Now, trouble is that analysts are so inundated trying to triage your false positives that they don't get time to look at true positives. So I say that, like, if a tool is generating a false positive, that's just as good as or as bad as if it misses generating a true positive, because your analyst, right, might be stuck triaging your previously generated false positive. They won't have time to look at your true positive. So if your tool generated a false positive and true positive, and true positive is behind false positive, then it's bad, right? Because this alert, like alert fatigue is a real problem. And the challenge with that is that, as I said, these service providers are low, I mean, like, are like fresh out of college people. Maybe sometimes they're working for somebody else. So that you don't want to give them access to all your software, all your tools, all your people. And so they don't have worldview, right? So one common problem, for example, we just saw with our customer was that there was an alert about a file being malicious, right? And so that MDR had said that, hey, this is a true positive because file is bad. But if you investigate it a little bit more, you'll find that that file was bad, but it was used for testing purpose, and it belonged to a approved list of software that the company was maintaining. So MDR didn't have access to that knowledge. But with AI SOC, you can do that. So with AI SOC, it's just a software that has visibility in all your software tools. It has visibility in your security knowledge. So it can go and read those things. It can do so every alert that your tool is generating, it will triage and investigate completely. So nothing is ignored. And so like that's a very common benefit that AI SOC is bringing.
So we just talked about, for example, you mentioned, alert triaging, right? Being able to integrate into an organization's existing tooling and looking at all the alerts that are being generated. You also talked about, for example, the ability to bring context, right? So use the example of a malicious file or malicious looking file, but it was actually owned, right, by an approved team. So maybe using that example and coming back to Symbian, what are some key features of the Symbian AI SOC analyst that you would like to highlight for our learners here? And how does it integrate into a company's existing enterprise tooling?
Yeah, great question. So we come at people's level, meaning that we don't replace your existing products. So your existing security products, we get you, we help you get more out of them. And so all you have to do is come to Symbian and integrate your products. So we have now more than 70 integrations done. So your Splunk, QRadar, Palo Alto, Axiom, Microsoft Sentinel, Sentinel-1, CrowdStrike, all these things, they are integrated. So you integrate, and that's very easy the way we have built it. And after that, our product takes over. So it goes and fetches all the alerts automatically. You don't have to do anything. And then it starts to work on them one by one. And one of the things that we have done is that we have built this kind of unified reasoning plane for security, where we go and we pull information from your Microsoft Teams or your Slack or your Splunk or your CloudTrail or your Guard Duty or your antivirus, like EDR. And all those things are normalized. So just like as a human, right? We, like a competent engineer, for example, they can talk about lots of different domains and they have lots of knowledge and their mind structures everything together. So we took the same approach, and all this knowledge from various tools, various products, some are security, some are even like your HRIS systems, your Okta and other things. They all come together. And so then for the given alert, we look for all the information. And so we find all the relevant information from all these 70 plus tools that we have access to. And once we have gathered all the information, then we create a chain, a reasoning chain, that this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. And now we determine whether what is happening is good or bad. If it's good, okay, we just ignore it or say that is false positive. If it's bad, then we take one step further. Then we say that, okay, what are ways of mitigating it? Ways of mitigating it could be you go and block that firewall. Maybe you want to reset a user's machine. Maybe you want to reset their password. Maybe you want to send an email to employees manager and tell them that we have found something funky going on with this user. So we take all those actions automatically. So the experience to customer is magical because we never tell customer that, hey, we found 20 things for you, can you take a look? Rather, we say that we looked at 200 things that you had. We eliminated all of them. Here is what we did, and a nice report for you to review. So your job as a security professionals simply becomes, treat Symbian as your employee and review its work and give it some permissions, right? So maybe you don't want it to take all the actions automatically. So you can say that, no, I don't want you to take actions. You tell me what you want to do, I will review. Only if I say yes, then you go do that. So it's really powerful.
Lovely vision. I think you're touching on many, many important topics related to the pain of security people. You briefly used the word alert fatigue, which is my favorite topic for these conversations because it's a fully loaded word in my mind. It's not a simple word. So maybe we should double click on that a little bit more and explore some dimensions there. I have a viewpoint on what fatigue is, but I think it'll be
Yeah.
great to get your viewpoint on. I mean, you've spoken to maybe hundreds of customers in this space. What is your characterization of what the hell is fatigue? Why is it there? What is it composed of?
Yeah, like so the most at most fundamental level, we have as a security industry normalized the security products to generate alerts which they shouldn't have generated. And the reason for that is very simple, that if you have a firewall and it missed a real threat, everybody pointed fingers at that vendor that, hey, like you are useless. But on the other hand, if you had firewall, that for every traffic coming to it say that, yeah, something bad, something bad, something bad, the vendor could claim that I did our part, I did my part, and it's the customer which did not act on it. And so what it has done is it has incentivized all these security vendors to create alerts that they should not create. And and so we get these false positives and true positives. But I say that this is false nomenclature, because whether it's false positive or true positive, it's more work for person who needs to review. So just assume you are a manager. Maybe you manage, like, let's say, large number, 100 employees, and each of your employees comes to you and says that, hey, I just did something, it's really good, but you don't need to worry, it's all good. I mean, it will be crazy. And that's the environment we have created in security. So security people, they get bombarded with all these things from all these tools, and they spend, like, 5 minutes, 10 minutes looking at it, and then they say that, oh, useless, 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 but it's more work. And I think this is critical to realize as an industry, that a security product that generates a false positive alert is just as bad as another security product that does not generate a true positive alert. Because in both cases, you will be, it will lead to catastrophic failure. So a tool should do the maximum amount of work itself, and where it fails should be escalated to the analysts. But like traditionally, we have not done that, and therefore, if you ask your SOC analyst, they will say that, oh yeah, I took care of 200 alerts today. And but what did actually do to help improve your security, that nobody knows.
Yeah, so I think paraphrasing some of your commentary and distilling it into something consumable in one sentence, let's say, or two sentences, the alert volume is insane. And you, I think, very astutely pointed out the why for that. I don't disagree with that part. Why the alert volume is high. Part of the big reason is what you quoted. It's save my ass. I told you so, it was your problem. And then for every threat vector, there is 20 tools and there is overlapping tools for overlapping threat vectors. So you have a jungle of security tools in any small company even. So you get the picture N by N. It's too many. The why is pretty clear. One way to solve that would have been is drop the alerts, cut the alerts, be smart about it. The other one would be fine, I'll put a reasoning plane, the way you use the word reasoning plane. AI is here, I'm going to consume it all and I'm going to do the reasoning on it so that you don't have to do it. That's the second approach, right? You seem to be starting on the second side of the house, but do you have any thoughts on the first side of the house? Cutting them up front with high certainty.
Like, there is the two are equivalent. So the way I look at it is, today in security, there is detection engineering and then there is response. And the way it works is that all your, like, SIMs or XDRs, they have like sensors, and you go put some rules. And your goal is to figure out, like, like what kind of traffic, what kind of accesses are bad. And so you set your aperture. If you set it wide, then it's like lots of false alerts. If you set it too narrow, you miss the thing. So you do the best you can. And so that's one end. Now, once you have set, so that's one. And then what you do on the other hand is you put people to resolve those alerts, right? To look at those alerts, whatever comes. So I apply, economist mind here. And so you can think that in runtime, like your detection is almost free because you have set up your rule, either it fires or not. So your detection is free, $0 per alert. And this one, give or take, like maybe $80 is what I have done calculation to resolve. So you have $0 on detection, and it's all or nothing, very noisy. So you have to choose it, right? And then if you miss it, then it's $80 per alert. And so what happens is with $0, you create tons of alerts, and $80, you can't respond to them. What you are saying that, hey, is there a smarter way of dropping these alerts along the way? And I'm saying yes, absolutely. And the way to do that is with AI. So, so a powerful AI and outcome-driven approach should be that no, I will set my aperture wide enough so that I'm not missing any true events because it's $0, right? So I do that. But before it gets escalated to a person and becomes something that will, in some cases, cost me thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to resolve, if you have to, hire people from Mandiant to do something, right? In between, what can we do? And so AI can, like on the left side, when it's closer to detection, it can drop things, really quickly. It does not need to go through whole investigation. We see, for example, tons of time when something has not been set up correctly, or we see like one incident and then like hundreds of other alerts related to that. And so in today's scenario, your detection detects all those, sends it to all the humans. You don't need to do that. With AI, maybe AI cannot resolve the first one, so it will send it to human. So your $80 cost is there, but subsequent 100 ones, it will hold on to them. It will say that, no, I don't need to get somebody involved because somebody is working on one of these alerts. And
Yeah.
after that, then it will replicate.
Yeah, I think so. The dual strategy of reducing the fatigue by providing the reasoning plane and dropping it, in my humble opinion, is the need. Otherwise, one doesn't function well without the other. Your,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
reasoning cost is definitely increasing if you're not reducing the size of the input queue in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
That's good. I think we're kind of approaching the problem from two dimensions, and they're both valid approaches in that sense for the sake of this conversation. There's also this nuance, you must have heard this before, and what I'm going to say next, and you probably can color this better than I will in my lifetime. So there is bad quality alerts. If you look at the spectrum and taking your example of you did something, don't tell me what you did because it's pointless information. Like that's bad quality alert, right? But there's some good quality alert, which is built based on existing knowledge of threats and exploits and attacker behavior, right? Let's say there is good quality alerts there that can be enriched with AI. And that part everybody's solving for. The part where the human is sort of still very interesting is there's a lot of non-indexed security knowledge. So it's very hard to build alerts for them, right? This comes from experience, from reading stuff and so on and so forth. What is the role that you want to play as the AI platform for security operations, or at least your vision around that, or how much of this problem have you qualified in your head to say there's something that can be done about that as well?
No, 100%. I mean, like, this is what I mentioned earlier, that we pull information from 70 plus tools today, and like your 10, 20, 10, 15 tools are, security. Your remaining ones are what you call non-indexed knowledge. And like the most disturbing or most liberating thing I will say on this topic, depending on your perspective, is that like we humans are no special. Up until like 2 years ago, I thought that like we would always have some edge, but now I'm 100% convinced that all this intuition, all this knowledge, reading about things, it's just matter of time before Symbian AI SOC will be smarter than all of us combined. And because like whatever books you read, AI can also read it and read it 100 times faster. It can also connect dots. One of the things you mentioned, like non-index knowledge, Turns out, large language models are great at that. So they can do the same thing. So my viewpoint is that like almost all of security operations would be done by AI, with humans only needed to review and control. And whether it takes us a year or 5 years, it's certainly not more than that.
Yeah, I'm definitely inspired by that thought, and I think this non-index knowledge language models coming to the rescue. I just don't see enough people pushing that boundary, or I might be living under the rock. Either ways, I would love to see that thing applied in the context of emerging threat response, where there's a lot of newness and nuance. It's not a sim rule at that point.
100%. I mean, one of the things I remember from you, Ashish, and you have been practitioner and now on the other side, right? That only thing as a CISO I want to know is that whether this threat is applicable to me.
Correct.
So,
That's the
so
first freaking filter. Give me a quick answer on that.
right? And turns out that it's a very hard problem.
Yes.
And the reason it's hard because lots of your unique context around that event chain. And like for example, you may be playing game, right? You might have set up a DevOps environment, and like all of that is like flooded with PII data, PHI data,
So the
and it's
example
all
that
set
you
up.
gave earlier, the file was malicious by design. Who's going to
Yeah,
give me that context?
that's right. That's right. That's right. So very much this is what like we should build, and certainly Symbian is building,
Yeah,
and we can build and we will build.
awesome. Over to you, Nancy.
Yeah, especially along that lines of, what is the role of the human, right? So we talked about, for example, the human is there to really give context or meaning, right? Or just understanding of what's coming in, what actually needs to be done, and all the actual security operations, maybe the process level work is now being done by AI agents. So that actually brings us to a topic that's got many people quite concerned, right? Is that agents are going to take their jobs. So maybe let's go to some of your thoughts on, what does the role human analysts continue to play in this world with AI agents in the SOC?
Yeah, so one thing I say is that there are no permanent solutions to temporary problems. And what I mean by that is that this thing that, oh, Symbian AI SOC can do L1, L2. And so what do I do now? Would I mean, get out of job? Turns out that, look, as I'm saying, we are building. So we cannot fully automate everything. We do lots of things, but lots of things are remaining. So you can do that. And now your question is, oh, what happens in a year or two? Maybe you can automate all of it. And then answer is that we don't know, right? So we have to wait for it. Only way we can answer that question is by getting there. If history is any guide, any automation that we have used, be it calculator or Microsoft Excel or computers or programming or Python or like now LLMs, it has led to people doing more and more work because it enabled more creators, right? Like who would have thought that internet would lead to like influencer economy, right? Like back then, like nerds were passing emails. From that point to creating like videos and then people putting content out there and other people supporting them. So our job and my job particularly as an entrepreneur is to accelerate technology, and that we can do because today people are suffering. Today people are dying. Hospitals are getting ransomed by bad criminal gangs. It's a shame if I don't apply my knowledge to give those people tools to defend themselves. So that's what I will do. And like it will lead to other things, right? It will lead to new industry, new thing. So in short, I say that saying that AI will not take your job. Somebody with AI might take your job if you are not using AI. That remains true.
I think arms has always been there. So if we are not going to apply AI to this job, the bad actors are certainly doing that. So it's not like Symbian or Symbian-like companies can produce AI to help humans and humans are not needed because the bad humans are also using AI. So it's a never-ending game. Even if they can't get to more intelligent work, they still have intelligent work in the space itself because there's an arms race that's never ending.
100%. Security is one industry where pace of innovation is not set by you.
Correct.
So if you work in a like banking, for example, You can talk to your boss and two of you can agree that, oh, this quarter, this is what we'll do, and next year, this is what we'll do. If you work in security, you can have all your plans and somebody might do something and that will completely change your plan. So only way to survive is actually through AI, not, I mean, it's not a question of have a problem.
There's definitely excitement about AI. There's definitely more color and content around what it can do and what impact it'll have on humanity in general and how it'll, help the security space. But I think given your past experiences as a builder, as a researcher and now an entrepreneur as well in the context of security, maybe top 2 or 3 things that you want to leave somebody who is thinking about adopting AI as the cornerstone of their operation strategy. What's the rubric or lens that they should use to get ready for it? Because jumping into hot waters is no longer an option. Like there has to be a method to this madness. So maybe some strong 2 or 3 pieces of advice. Think like this, do this before you jump in, kind of a dialogue.
Yeah, so one thing is that AI should lead to immediate, better outcomes for you. So what does it mean? It means that if you are MSSP MDR, for example, and you are considering using AI SOC, it should at least lead to 20% improvement in your gross margin. So that's the starting point. And so whatever you evaluate, you are not evaluating on, what's your MITRE coverage. That's useless, right? What you are evaluating.
That's a false positive, right?
That's the false positive right there. What you are evaluating is that can it improve my gross margin by 20%, and how long will it take to improve it? Be driven by outcomes. And number two is that good thing with AI SOC and certainly what Symbian has done is that you can do it in parallel. So just spend an hour or two, integrate Symbian in your SOC, and continue to do whatever you are doing, and let Symbian go at it. And after a week, come back and see, like, did Symbian do what we did otherwise? And if not, like, what are points of discrepancies and who was better? And so it makes it very easy for you to evaluate. And then you don't have to go all in on this. You can, I mean, many of these large companies, they have lots of, systems, lots of SIMs. So you can start with maybe choose like, maybe one organization or one cloud. And so start small and then scale.
Well said. I think this regimen of thinking has not changed in the last 20 years that I've been practicing. Start somewhere, don't be afraid, and compare and look for outcomes, not features.
Yeah.
Thank
Well
you very
said.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nancy, you
Well,
want to?
thank you so much, Ambuj, for joining us in our virtual studio today for the DFUD podcast. Signing off.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you.